In the cold silence of the void belt, a human mining crew stumbled upon more than rock and ore. They uncovered a shattered escape pod carrying the last hope of an alien empire. Inside was Princess Lirelei, wounded, regal, and alone her world. Lost to the monstrous Shadowborn. Captain Marcus Chen didn't hesitate. He didn't need a council's permission or a profit margin to tell him what to do. Because when humanity finds someone broken and bleeding, we don't turn away, we reach out. What began as a rescue turned into a war for survival, a story of courage, sacrifice, and the unshakable truth that sometimes the strongest weapon in the galaxy is the human heart. When stars cry for help, the mining vessel Determination drifted silently through the void belt, its hull scarred by countless encounters with space debris. Captain Marcus Chen stood on the bridge, his weathered hands gripping the command console as he watched the asteroid field stretch endlessly before them. The ship was nothing fancy, just a converted cargo hauler with mining equipment bolted on. But it had been home to his crew for 3 years. "Another day, another rock," muttered engineer Sarah Torres from her station, her fingers dancing across holographic displays showing mineral scan results. At 28, she was the youngest member of the crew, but arguably the most brilliant. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her coveralls were stained with the honest work of keeping an aging ship running. Marcus smiled at her comment. Sarah always complained about the monotony, but he knew she loved the challenge of coaxing precious metals from lifeless stones. "That boring rock is going to pay for your daughter's education," he reminded her. Dr. James Mitchell looked up from his medical charts. As the ship's medic and part-time xenobiologist, he usually spent his time treating minor injuries and cataloging the strange bacteria they occasionally found in asteroid cores. "Actually, the mineral composition we've been finding lately suggests this region might have been part of a larger planetary system millions of years ago." "Great, Doc. Dead planet fragments." "That's not ominous at all," said Navigation Officer Kim Park. At 25, Kim was fresh out of the Navigation Academy, but had proven herself as capable of threading the ship through asteroid fields that would challenge pilots with decades of experience. The bridge fell into comfortable silence as each crew member focused on their tasks. Marcus watched Kim's hands move with practiced precision across her navigation console, making minute adjustments to their course. They had been working together for 2 years now, and the crew functioned like a well-oiled machine. Suddenly, Kim's console erupted in warnings. "Captain, I'm picking up an energy signature. It's faint, but definitely artificial." Marcus moved to her station. "Show me." The main display flickered to life, showing a massive asteroid roughly 3 kilometers across. Embedded deep within its surface was something that definitely didn't belong there. The object appeared metallic, with strange blue-green patterns running along its surface that pulsed with a weak but steady light. "That's not human technology," Dr. Mitchell said, his voice filled with excitement and concern. "The energy patterns are completely unknown." Sarah's console beeped rapidly as she ran detailed scans. "Captain, whatever that thing is, it's been there for a while, maybe weeks, but it's still active. There's a power source inside, and ... Double quotes, she paused, her eyes widening. "There's a life sign." The bridge went dead silent. In 3 years of mining operations, they had never encountered anything remotely like this. Humanity had been exploring space for over 2 centuries, but contact with alien life remained limited to simple organisms and ancient ruins. "Are you certain?" Marcus asked. "Positive. The biosignature is weak but consistent. Someone, or something, is alive in there, but barely." Sarah's voice carried a note of urgency. "Captain, whatever's in there won't last much longer. The power readings are dropping." Marcus felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. They were miners, not explorers or first contact specialists. They had families back on Earth, obligations, and a cargo hold half full of processed minerals worth millions of credits. The smart thing would be to report their find to the authorities and continue their mission. But someone was dying. "Kim, bring us alongside that asteroid." "Sarah, prepare the mining drones for extraction. We're going to cut that thing out." "Captain, Dr. Mitchell said carefully. "We don't know what we're dealing with. This could be dangerous." Marcus turned to face his crew. "Doc, you're right. This could be the stupidest thing we've ever done. But if that was one of us trapped in there, wouldn't you want someone to take the risk?" The crew exchanged glances. Sarah was the first to nod. "I can modify the mining drones to extract it without causing damage. Give me 20 minutes. I'll prep the medical bay," Dr. Mitchell added. "Though I have no idea what to expect." Kim was already adjusting their approach vector. "If we're doing this, we need to do it fast. This asteroid field is unstable. We won't have long." The next hour was controlled chaos. Sarah worked her magic. With the mining drones, their precision-cutting beams slicing through solid rock like a surgeon's scalpel. The object they extracted was clearly some kind of escape pod, roughly the size of a small shuttle, but with curves and angles that hurt to look at directly. The blue-green patterns pulsed more rapidly as they brought it aboard. "Life signs are critical," Dr. Mitchell reported from the cargo bay where they had placed the pod. "Whatever's in there is dying." The pod's surface was smooth as glass, with no visible seams or controls. Sarah ran her hands over its surface, her engineer's instincts searching for some way to open it. There has to be a mechanism. No one builds a sealed container without a way to get out. Marcus studied the pulsing patterns. There was something almost hypnotic about them, like they were trying to communicate. Acting on instinct, he placed his palm against one of the brighter pulses. The pod responded immediately. The patterns flared with brilliant light, and a section of the hull simply faded away like morning mist. The crew stumbled backward, hands reaching for weapons they didn't carry. Inside the pod lay a figure that took their breath away. She was unmistakably feminine, but clearly not human. Her skin had a pale blue luminescence, and delicate crystalline structures grew from her temples like a crown. Her hair flowed like liquid starlight, shifting between silver and gold. She was tall, perhaps 7 feet, with elongated limbs that spoke of evolution and low gravity. Most striking were her eyes, which held depths of sadness and wisdom that seemed older than stars. But she was wounded. Dark fluid that might have been blood seeped from injuries across her torso, and her breathing was shallow and labored. "God," Dr. Mitchell whispered. "She's beautiful." The alien's eyes fluttered open, focusing on Marcus with effort. When she spoke, her voice was like singing crystal, but somehow the words formed in their minds rather than their ears. "Please," she said, the word carrying weight of desperate hope. "I am Princess Lorelei of the Etherean royal house, my people. They're all gone. The Shadowborn came and ... Her voice broke into what could only be sobbing. Dr. Mitchell moved forward, his medical instincts overriding his amazement. "We need to get her to the medical bay. I don't know her physiology, but those wounds need treatment." As they carefully moved Princess Lorelei, Marcus found himself holding her hand. Her skin was cool, but somehow warm at the same time, and he could feel a faint vibration, like electricity just beneath the surface. "Why did you save me?" she asked, her mental voice weak, but curious. "Because you needed help," Marcus replied. Simply, her eyes widened, with something that might have been surprise. "Your species, ... What are you called?" "Human." "We're from a planet called Earth." "Humans," she repeated, as if tasting the word. "I've never heard of your kind. But you show kindness to a stranger. This is ... unexpected." In the medical bay, Dr. Mitchell worked with careful precision, using scanners to understand her alien biology. "Her cellular structure is incredible," he muttered to himself. "It's like she's made of living crystal and organic matter combined." Princess Lorelei watched his work with growing trust. "You heal without understanding. Why do you risk your own safety for mine?" Sarah looked up from the console where she was. "Trying to understand the pod's technology, 'cause that's what people do. We help each other." "People," Lorelei repeated. "An interesting concept. Among my kind, we would say the light-bound ones, those connected by the sacred crystal's glow." Over the next several hours, as Dr. Mitchell tended to her wounds and her strength slowly returned, Princess Lorelei told them her story. The Ethereans had been an ancient and peaceful race, their civilization built around harmony with crystalline energy sources. They had never known war, Never needed to, until the Shadowborn came. They are creatures of pure darkness, she explained, her mental voice heavy with grief. They consume light, devour hope, feed on the life force of entire worlds. They came to our system 3 months ago and began their harvest. The crew listened in horrified fascination as she described the destruction of her people. Entire planets stripped of life, billions of Etherans consumed to fuel the Shadowborn's endless hunger. I was the last to escape. My father, the king, used the last of our sacred crystal's power to launch my pod toward empty space. He hoped I might find help, or at least preserve some memory of what we were. You're not the last, Marcus said firmly. There have to be others who escaped. Liralay's crystalline crown dimmed, perhaps. But where would they go? The Shadowborns follow the light, and Etherians cannot survive long without crystal energy. Even now, I feel my life force fading. Sarah suddenly straightened at her console. The pod's power source, some kind of crystal matrix, isn't it? It's a fragment of our world's sacred crystal, but it is nearly exhausted. What if we could find more? Are there other deposits? Other sources of this crystal energy? For the first time since they had found her, hope flickered in Princess Liralay's eyes. There is one place, the sanctuary, world of Lumina, where our ancestors built the first crystal temples. If any of my people survive, they would flee there, but it is far and dangerous, and ... She looked at each of them in turn. Why would you risk such a journey for strangers? Marcus felt the crew's eyes on him. This was the moment of decision. They could take Princess Liralay to the nearest human outpost, port their discovery, and return to their simple mining operation. Or they could embark on a journey into unknown dangers for people they had never met. He thought of his own daughter back on Earth, of Sarah's family, of all the reasons they should choose safety over risk. Then he looked at Princess Liralay, at the hope and desperation in her ancient eyes, and realized there was really no choice at all. Because that's what humans do, he said. We don't abandon people who need help. Kim, set course for this Lumina. Sarah, start figuring out how we can modify our ship to support Etherian life support. Doc, keep our princess healthy. Captain, Dr. Mitchell said quietly, we have no idea what we're heading into. Marcus smiled grimly. Then we'll figure it out as we go. It's what makes us human. Princess Liralay's crystalline crown flared with brilliant light, and for a moment, the entire medical bay was filled with the warm glow of hope. Humans, she whispered, wonder in her voice. Perhaps there is light left in this universe after all. As the determination turned away from the asteroid field and toward unknown space, none of them could imagine the incredible journey that lay ahead, or how their simple act of compassion would change the fate of 2 entire civilizations. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if the universe itself approved of their choice. Light in the darkness, the journey to Lumina took 3 weeks through uncharted space, and every day brought new challenges that tested the crew's ingenuity. The determination had never been designed for long-range exploration, let alone supporting alien life forms with completely different biological needs. Sarah Torres had practically lived in the engineering bay, working around the clock to modify their life support systems. The ship now hummed with a strange harmonic frequency that Princess Liralay needed to maintain her connection to crystal energy. It had taken Sarah 2 weeks to figure out how to generate the resonance using their fusion reactor, but she had managed it with typical human stubbornness. The harmonic field is stable, Sarah reported to Captain Marcus Chen as he entered the engineering section. Her coveralls were now stained with both human lubricants and strange crystalline residue from Etherian technology. But Captain, what I'm seeing here is incredible. Princess Liralay's pod isn't just a life support system. It's like a computer, a power source, and a communication device, all rolled into one. Marcus nodded, still amazed by how quickly his engineer had adapted to working with completely alien technology. Any luck understanding how it works? Some. The crystal matrix responds to bioelectric fields and emotional states. It's not just technology, it's almost alive. And Captain, if we can understand this, imagine what it could mean for human engineering. In the medical bay, Dr. James Mitchell, was having his own revelations about ether and biology. Princess Lerelay's wounds had healed with remarkable speed once they established the proper harmonic environment, but she remained weak. Her body was designed to draw energy from massive crystal formations, not the small fragment in her escape pod. "Your physiology is fascinating," Dr. Mitchell told her as he completed his daily examination. "Your cellular structure actually stores and channels energy like a living battery. But you're running on fumes right now." Princess Lirelay sat up on the medical bed, her crystalline crown glowing dimly. Over the past weeks, she had grown more comfortable with the humans, though she still seemed amazed by their willingness to help. "Dr. Mitchell, may I ask you something about human nature? Of course, your people risk much for strangers. This is not common in the galaxy. Most species we have encountered are concerned only with their own survival. What drives humans to such compassion?" Dr. Mitchell considered the question carefully. "I think it's because we've had to depend on each other for our entire evolutionary history. We're not the strongest or fastest species, but we take care of our own. And maybe our definition of our own is just bigger than most." "Remarkable," Lirelay murmured. "Perhaps this is why the crystal resonates so strongly with your captain, Chen." "What do you mean?" "Sacred crystal responds to nobility of spirit, to those who would sacrifice for others. Captain Chen's bioelectric field harmonizes with crystal energy in ways I have never seen from a non-Etherean. It is as if he was meant to wield such power." On the bridge, Marcus was having his own strange experiences. Since they had established the harmonic field, he had begun to sense things fluctuations in space around them. Distant energy signatures and sometimes what felt like whispers at the edge of his consciousness. He hadn't told the crew about it yet, not wanting to worry them. Captain Kim Park called from her navigation station. "We're approaching the coordinates Princess Lirelay provided, but I'm not seeing any planets on sensors." "That is expected," came Lirelay's mental voice as she entered the bridge. She moved with growing strength, though she still needed to rest frequently. "Lumina exists in a pocket dimension, anchored to this space by the great crystal temples. You must allow me to guide us through the barrier." Kim looked skeptical. "Pocket dimension? Captain, that's theoretical physics at best." "A week ago, telepathic alien princesses were theoretical too," Marcus replied. "Princess, what do you need us to do?" Lirelay approached the main console, her hands hovering over the controls. "I must synchronize your ship's harmonic field with the dimensional barrier. But Captain Chen, I will need your help. The crystal responds strongest to you." Marcus felt a strange pulling sensation as he moved to stand beside her. When she took his hand, the sensation intensified, and suddenly he could feel the space around them differently, as if reality had hidden layers that were just becoming visible. "Now," Lirelay whispered. The stars outside the viewport began to shift and bend. Kim's instruments went wild as space itself seemed to fold around them. Then, with a sensation like stepping through a doorway, everything snapped back to normal. But they were no longer an empty space. Before them hung a world of impossible beauty. Luminous surface gleamed with crystalline formations that stretched from pole to pole, creating a planet that looked like a massive cut gem. Floating structures orbited the world, temples and cities that defied conventional physics, held aloft by the same crystal energy that powered Etherean civilization. "My God," Dr. Mitchell breathed from behind them. "It's magnificent." "Welcome to Lumina," Princess Lirelay said, and Marcus could hear the mixture of joy and sorrow in her mental voice. "The last sanctuary of my people." As they approached the planet, Sarah's sensors began picking up signs of life. "Captain, I'm reading hundreds of biosignatures. The temples. They're full of people," survivors, Lirelay confirmed. "They came here as my people always have in times of crisis, seeking the protection of the sacred crystals. But they cannot hide forever. The Shadowborn will find this place eventually." They landed the determination at a crystalline spaceport near the largest temple complex. As the crew prepared to disembark, Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. They were about to become the first humans to set foot on an alien world inhabited by a living civilization. The airlock opened to reveal a delegation of Ethereans waiting for them. They were all tall and graceful like Lirelay, with the same crystalline growths and luminescent skin. but their light seemed dimmed by fear and exhaustion. At their head stood an elderly Etheran, whose crystalline crown was larger and more elaborate than the others. "High Priest Valdris, Princess Lirelei," said aloud as she descended the ramp, speaking in her own language for the first time since they had found her.
Oh.
The musical quality of Etheran's speech was hauntingly beautiful. The elderly priest responded in the same language, his voice filled with relief and disbelief. Then he turned to the human crew, and Marcus heard his words translated in his mind. "Welcome, beings of distant stars. I am High Priest Valdris, keeper of the sacred flames. Princess Lirelei has told us of your kindness, though I confess, we struggle to understand why strangers would risk so much for our sake." Marcus stepped forward, feeling the weight of representing his entire species. "Because it was the right thing to do, High Priest? We couldn't leave someone to die when we had the power to help." Valdris studied him with ancient eyes. "The princess speaks truly. The crystal resonates within you, Captain Chen. You have the soul of a guardian, though you are not Etheran. Perhaps the universe has sent us aid in our darkest hour." Over. The following days, the human crew was given a tour of Lumina that left them speechless. The Etheran civilization was built on principles of harmony and balance. Their cities grew like living things, shaped by crystal energy and the collective will of their inhabitants. There was no poverty, no violence, no want of any kind. It was a utopia that humanity had dreamed of for millennia. But it was a dying utopia. "We are the last High Priest," Valdris explained, as he showed them through the great temple. "Perhaps 800 souls from a civilization that once numbered in the billions. The Shadowborn have consumed 17 of our worlds. We hide here, behind dimensional barriers, but we grow weaker each day." Sarah was fascinated by the crystal technology, working with Etheran engineers to understand their power systems. "This is incredible," she told Marcus one evening. "They've learned to store pure energy in crystalline matrices. No pollution, no waste, unlimited clean power. If we could bring this knowledge back to Earth, ... If we make it back to Earth," Marcus reminded her. But he was thinking the same thing. The potential for human advancement was staggering. Dr. Mitchell had established a medical exchange program, learning about Etheran biology while teaching them about human medicine. "They're remarkably similar to us in many ways," he reported. "Same basic organic chemistry, same fundamental life processes. It's as if we share common ancestors somewhere in the distant past." Kim had been working with Etheran navigators, mapping the pocket dimension and understanding how their ships move between realities. "Captain, this dimensional technology could revolutionize human space travel. We could cross the galaxy in days instead of years." But it was Marcus who made the most disturbing discovery. He had been experiencing the strange sensations more frequently, and Princess Lirelei had begun teaching him to understand what he was feeling. "You have natural sensitivity to crystal energy," she explained. "Very rare, even among my people. But it allows you to sense things across vast distances." That was how he felt them coming. Marcus woke in the middle of his third night on Lumina, with ice in his veins. The sensation was like standing in front of an open grave, a cold, hungry emptiness that made his soul recoil. "They've found us," he whispered, and somehow knew it was true. He found Princess Lirelei in the temple's highest chamber, her crown blazing with desperate light as she communed with the sacred crystal. "You feel them too," she said without turning around. "How long do we have?" "Perhaps a day. They're still breaking through our dimensional barriers, but they will succeed. The Shadowborn always succeed." Marcus looked out at the beautiful crystal city below, knowing that by tomorrow it might be nothing but ash and darkness. There has to be something we can do. Some way to fight them. "The crystals can be weaponized," Lirelei said quietly. "In the ancient times, before we became a peaceful people, we used crystal energy for war. But the cost, ... she shuddered. To turn the sacred crystals into weapons of destruction goes against everything we believe, but it would work." "Yes, but Captain, you do not understand. To weaponize the crystals would require linking them to a massive power source. Someone would have to channel the energy directly, become a conduit for forces that could shatter planets. The strain would be fatal. Marcus felt a plan forming in his mind, terrible and necessary. What if we combined human and Ethereum technology? Sarah's been working with your engineers. Could we create hybrid systems? Apps! But what if the power source wasn't just one person? What if it was shared among multiple individuals? Princess Lirelei turned to face him, her eyes wide with understanding and horror. Captain Chen, you cannot be considering... I'm considering everything. How many people could we evacuate if we bought them time? Most of them, but the cost would be worth it, Marcus finished. Princess, your people gave humanity a gift when they showed us crystal technology. Now maybe it's time for humans to return the favor. The next morning, the human crew and Ethereum leadership met in emergency council. Marcus outlined his plan, and the room fell silent when he finished. You're talking about turning yourselves into living weapons, Doctor? Mitchell said, his voice tight with emotion. We're talking about buying time for 800 innocent people to escape, Marcus replied. Sarah looked up from her technical readouts. The hybrid systems could work. I integrate our fusion reactor with their crystal matrices, and if we create a distributed network linking multiple individuals, it's theoretically possible. But Marcus, the power levels we're talking about... could kill us. I know. Marcus looked around the room at his crew, his friends, who had become his family over 3 years of mining asteroids together. I'm not ordering anyone to do this. It has to be voluntary. Dr. Mitchell was the first to speak. I didn't become a doctor to watch people die when I could save them. Kim nodded firmly. My grandmother always said pilots should go down with their ships if it meant protecting passengers. Sarah smiled grimly. Besides, someone needs to make sure that hybrid systems don't explode prematurely. Princess Lirelei's crown flared with brilliant light. And I will stand with you. This is my people, my responsibility. Marcus said firmly. You need to lead the evacuation. Your people will need you to rebuild.
Captain Chen.
High Priest. Valdris said slowly, you would sacrifice yourselves for a people you barely know. This is... beyond comprehension. This is what humans do, Marcus replied simply. We stand between the darkness and the light, no matter the cost. Outside, the stars were beginning to dim as the Shadowborn approached. But inside the temple, surrounded by friends and allies from 2 different worlds, Marcus felt a warmth that no darkness could touch. The battle for Lumina was about to begin. When hearts transcend stars, the Shadowborn arrived like a plague upon the stars. Marcus Chen stood in the command center of the great temple. Watching through crystal displays as reality itself tore open above Lumina, the dimensional barriers that had protected the planet for millennia cracked like breaking glass. Through the rifts came ships that seemed to absorb light itself. They were vessels of pure darkness, twisted forms that hurt to look at directly, commanded by beings that fed on life force itself. Energy signatures are off the charts, Sarah Torres reported from her hybrid control station.
Wow.
She had spent the last 18 hours integrating human fusion technology with Ethereum crystal matrices, creating a weapon system that had never existed before. Her hands shook slightly as she made final adjustments, but her voice remained steady. The power grid is holding, but Captain, when we activate this thing... No, Marcus replied quietly. Around them, the evacuation was proceeding as quickly as possible. Ethereum civilians were being loaded onto every available transport, guided by Princess Lirelei and High Priest Valdris toward hidden escape routes that would take them to other pocket dimensions. But it would take hours to evacuate everyone, and they had minutes before the Shadowborn reached the planet's surface. Dr. James. Mitchell approached from the medical station he had set up nearby. I've prepared stimulants and pain suppressors for all of us, he said, his medical bag slung over his shoulder. They'll help us maintain consciousness longer when the energy starts flowing through us. But... He didn't need to finish the sentence. They all knew what they were facing. Navigation Officer Kim Park looked up from her station, where she was coordinating with the few remaining Ethereum defense ships. The outer perimeter has fallen. Shadowborn landing craft are beginning atmospheric entry. We've got maybe 20 minutes before they reach the temple complex. Princess Lorelei entered the command center, her crystalline crown blazing with desperate energy. She had been helping coordinate the evacuation, but now she turned to Marcus with eyes full of both gratitude and sorrow. The last transport ships will launch in 15 minutes. Captain Chen, there is still time for you and your crew to escape with them. No, Marcus said firmly. Someone has to hold the line. Someone has to make sure those ships get away safely. But the cost is acceptable, Dr. Mitchell interrupted gently. Princess, we made this choice with open eyes. Your people deserve a chance to survive and rebuild. This is how we give them that chance. Through the crystal displays, they watched the first Shadowborn creatures land on Lumina's surface. They were horrible beings of living darkness, tall and gaunt, with eyes like dying stars. Where they walked, the very ground withered and died. Crystal formations that had grown for thousands of years cracked and turned to ash at their touch. There, spreading out toward the population centers, Kim reported, trying to cut off the escape routes. Sarah's hands flew over her controls. The weapon grid is ready. All crystal nodes are synchronized with our fusion core. But Marcus, once we start this, there's no going back. The energy levels required. Kill us, Marcus finished. I understand. Everyone understands. He looked around at his crew, his friends, who had chosen to stand with him at the end of everything. Any last words before we light up the galaxy? Actor. Mitchell smiled sadly. I just want to say it's been an honor serving with you all. And Princess, tell your people that humanity stood with them when it mattered. They will remember, Lorelei promised, tears streaming down her luminescent cheeks. Your names will be spoken with reverence for as long as Etherians exist. Kim checked her chronometer. The last transport ships are launching now. You'll need at least 10 minutes to clear the dimensional barrier. So then we give them 10 minutes, Marcus said. He placed his hand on the central control crystal, feeling the vast power humming beneath its surface. Sarah, initiate the hybrid matrix. The temple began to glow as human fusion energy merged with ether and crystal power. The sensation was like nothing Marcus had ever experienced. Raw power flowing through his body, his nervous system becoming a conduit for forces that could reshape matter itself. The pain was indescribable, but so was the sense of connection he felt to his crew, to the crystals, to the very fabric of space around them. Energy flow stable, Sarah gasped, her entire body wreathed in crackling energy, all nodes online. We've got enough power to level continents. Then let's introduce the Shadowborn to human hospitality, Marcus said through gritted teeth. The first blast of crystal energy erupted from the temple complex like a newborn star. It struck the advancing Shadowborn forces with the fury of a solar flare, and creatures that had devoured countless civilizations simply ceased to exist. The beam carved through their ranks, leaving nothing but empty air where moments before there had been an army of darkness. But there were so many of them. More Shadowborn ships descended from orbit, disgorging fresh waves of creatures. The beings seemed endless and worse. They were adapting to the crystal energy, their forms shifting and changing to resist the attacks. They're learning our frequency, Sarah reported, her voice strained as she fought to maintain the energy flow. I'm adjusting the harmonics, but they're adapting faster than I can compensate. Through the displays, Marcus saw Shadowborn creatures reaching the outer edges of the temple complex. Up close, they were even more horrifying, tall figures of living shadow with claws that dripped darkness and mouths that spoke words of despair that could drive lesser beings insane. Kim, redirect power to the perimeter defenses, Marcus ordered. We need to keep them away from the evacuation routes. On it, Kim replied. Though blood was beginning to trickle from her nose as the energy flow taxed her human nervous system beyond its limits, Dr. Mitchell was monitoring all of their vital signs. His face grim as he watched their bodies slowly burn out under the strain. We're at 60% capacity and falling. The human nervous system wasn't designed for this kind of power flow. How long can we maintain it? Marcus asked. Maybe another 5 minutes before we start losing consciousness. After that, ... Mitchell shrugged. Princess Lorelei suddenly appeared beside Marcus, her hand joining his on the central crystal. Then I will help you maintain it longer, Princess. No. Marcus tried to push her away, but she was already linking herself to the energy matrix. Her etherian physiology was better adapted to crystal energy, but the hybrid system was still dangerous for her. Captain Chen, she said, her mental voice echoing with crystal harmonics, your people have given everything for mine. Allow me to give something in return. With Princess Lirelei added to the network, the power stabilized and actually increased. The crystal weapons began firing with renewed intensity, carving great swaths of destruction through the Shadowborn ranks. But Marcus could feel the princess's life force being consumed by the effort, her crystalline crown growing dimmer with each passing moment. Transport ships have cleared the barrier, Kim reported weakly. The evacuation is complete. Then we've done what we came to do, Marcus said. Through the energy connection, he could feel his crew's fading strength, their human bodies reaching the limits of endurance. But he could also feel something else, their satisfaction, their peace with the choice they had made. Sarah, he called out, can you overload the fusion core? One final blast to take out as many of them as possible? Already on it, Sarah replied with a ghost of her old grin. I've been building toward a cascade failure since we started. When it goes, it'll take out everything within 100 kilometers. That should discourage them from following the refugees. Dr. Mitchell observed clinically. The Shadowborn, sensing the building energy surge, began retreating toward their ships. But they wouldn't make it in time. The hybrid matrix was building toward a climax that would reshape the very landscape of Lumina. 10 seconds to cascade failure, Sarah announced. Marcus looked around at his crew one last time. Any regrets? Only that we couldn't save everyone, Kim said softly. Only that we'll never see what amazing things our species could have accomplished together, Dr. Mitchell added. Only that I didn't tell my daughter I loved her one more time, Sarah whispered. Princess? Lirelei's mental voice joined theirs. I have no regrets. You've shown me that there is still light in the universe, still hope. My people will carry that light forward. 5 seconds, Sarah counted down. What? 2. Marcus felt the energy reaching critical mass, felt his consciousness beginning to fragment under the strain. But in that moment, he also felt something unexpected, a resonance from somewhere beyond Lumina, beyond the pocket dimension. Other crystals, other sources of ether and power, were responding to their sacrifice. 1. The explosion should have killed them all instantly. The fusion core reached critical mass and detonated with the force of a small star, channeled and amplified by the crystal matrix into a beam of pure destruction that carved through space itself. The Shadowborn fleet simply vaporized, their ships and crews reduced to elementary particles in the space of a heartbeat. But when the light faded and consciousness slowly returned, Marcus found himself still alive. He was lying on crystal ground that had been fused into glass by the explosion, his body racked with pain but undeniably breathing. Around him, his crew was stirring with similar confusion and amazement. How? Dr. Mitchell croaked, his voice barely audible. Princess Lirelei raised herself on one elbow. Her crystalline crown now permanently changed instead of the delicate structures she had worn before. Her crown now resembled a fusion of crystal and metal, beautiful and strange. The other crystals, she whispered in wonder. The sacred crystals on the refugee ships, the hidden crystals on distant worlds, they all resonated with our sacrifice. They absorbed the fatal energies and channeled them away from us. Sarah sat up slowly, looking at her hands in amazement. The hybrid matrix. It created a quantum entanglement with every etherian crystal in existence. We didn't just save the people on Lumina. We created a network that connects all surviving etherians across the galaxy. Gift, Marcus realized. Our willingness to die for strangers created something that will help them rebuild and stay connected, no matter how far they scatter. Kim checked her instruments with shaking hands. The Shadowborn fleet is completely destroyed. But more importantly, I'm picking up transmissions from dozens of Etherian colonies. The crystal network is allowing them to communicate across impossible distances. They're organizing, planning, rebuilding. Over the following days, as they recovered in the ruins of the great temple, the full scope of what they had accomplished became clear. The hybrid human-Etherean technology had created something precedented, a galaxy-spanning network of crystals that allowed instantaneous communication and even transportation between worlds. The scattered refugees could now find each other, could work together despite being spread across hundreds of light years. But more than that, the Ethereans who had witnessed humanity's sacrifice began to spread the story. Within weeks, other alien civilizations were reaching out to both humans and Ethereans, drawn by tales of the species that had risked everything to save strangers. "You have changed the galaxy," Princess Lirelei told Marcus, as they stood together in the rebuilt temple's highest chamber. "Your actions have inspired others to look beyond their own survival, to consider the welfare of all sentient beings." Marcus looked out at the stars, now knowing that among them were worlds where humans and Ethereans worked side by side, sharing knowledge and building a better future. "We just did what felt right. I never expected it to lead to all this." "That is precisely why it did lead to this," Lirelei replied. "True nobility cannot be calculated or planned. It simply is." The determination had been repaired and upgraded with hybrid technology, making it one of the most advanced ships in the galaxy. But Marcus and his crew had found a new purpose beyond mining asteroids. They'd become ambassadors, explorers, and guardians of the growing alliance between species. Captain Sarah called from the ship's new, crystal-enhanced engineering bay. "We're receiving a transmission from Earth. The government wants to know when we're coming home to share the crystal." "Technology," Marcus smiled. "Tell them we'll be home when the galaxy doesn't need us anymore." "That could be a while," Dr. Mitchell observed, looking up from his research into alien biology. "Good," Kim said from the navigation station, plotting courses too. Distant worlds where their help was needed. I was getting tired of normal anyway. As the determination prepared to depart Lumina for their next mission, Princess Lirelei approached Marcus one final time. "Captain Chen, there is something I must tell you. The Crystal Network has shown us something extraordinary." "What's that?" "Your species, humanity, is not unique in your compassion. But you are unique in your willingness to act on it without thought of reward. Its quality, more than any technology or weapon, will determine the future of our galaxy." Marcus clasped her hand, marveling at how the simple touch could now transmit feelings and thoughts across the Crystal Network. "Then we better make sure it's a good future." "With humans to guide the way," Lirelei said softly, "how could it be anything else?" As the ship lifted off from Lumina's crystal surface, Marcus looked back one last time at the world they had helped save. In the distance, new crystal formations were already growing, tended by Etherean children who would grow up in a galaxy where different species worked together for the common good. It had started with a simple decision to help a stranger in distress, but sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change everything. The stars ahead held infinite possibilities. And for the first time in galactic history, there were humans among them, carrying light into the darkness and proving that hope could triumph over any shadow. The end.